What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt and this is the new Lexus GX550. And we've shown you the best and the rest of this truck, but today we're going to show you all of the nitty-gritty and everything that makes this truck so special. Let's get into it. Now the first question, and it's an important one, is what is the GX? Well, think of the GX as almost a forerunner that kind of went to finishing school. In the past, other countries have called it the Land Cruiser Prado, and now the Land Cruiser is coming back to the United States. So basically, you can kind of think of this now as a ritzed up Land Cruiser. It's got a history of rugged dependability and off-road capability, so let's see if that translates to 2024. But speaking of 2024, what's new for this year? And the answer is a lot, well, basically everything. It's a brand new chassis for the GX, it's a new generation of engine, or engines, and it's got a totally new look inside and out, so pretty much everything, yeah, is new. We'll start where we usually do, that's under the hood. Now currently, there's only one engine on offer. It's the 3.4 twin turbo V6. It's pretty familiar. We kind of saw the introduction of this engine in the Tundra. You've got this in the LX, and here in the GX, it makes 349 horsepower. That's about 50 more than the old V8. And it's making 479 pound-feet of torque. That's over 100 more pound-feet of torque than the outgoing V8. Fuel economy is also up, 15 city, 21 highway for about 19 mpg combined. It's only about 2 mpg better than the V8, so not a huge gain, but you get a huge gain in power and torque, so that is a huge win. But at the beginning of this, I said that there's only one engine on offer currently. There's high speculation, and it's highly probable that we will see the iForce Max, or whatever the Lexus equivalent is going to be called, but this engine with the hybrid edition coming later. And then in terms of the driveline, power goes from that twin-turbo V6 through a 10-speed automatic transmission. Again, familiar with what we've seen over the last few years with the new F-chassis vehicles. You do get full-time four-wheel drive here, though, something that we ding the Toyotas for on that side. You do get four-wheel drive as standard, by the way, on your GX, and you get a center differential lock. And if you go for the Overtrail, you can get a rear differential lock, again, for more off-road capability. But we'll talk about the chassis because I just mentioned F chassis. Now, what does that mean? Well, this is Toyota Lexus's new generation of ladder frame or body on frame or truck chassis. It saves about 400 pounds, or at least it did when it came into the new Land Cruiser a couple of years ago. So 400 pounds lighter, just about, let's say a couple hundred pounds depending on application. And it's also stronger while saving that weight. So that's a big deal. This ends up being about 400 pounds heavier though than the previous generation GX. So a lot of that has come from additional technology and luxuries that you get here for the 2024. But let's talk about the styling. Now, arguably, this is the best part of the car. The styling here gives it so much personality. The rest of it is pretty typical Lexus, and we'll talk about that more as we get into the interior, but you get such a geometric and kind of old school, off-roader SUV. You've got these bulges in the hood to help you spot where the ends of your hood are. It's not quite at the end. You do get a little bit of bulge here, but your spindle grille is a lot more subtle than it has been before. Kind of has a little bit of a little lower lip that comes up into it. You've got your classic Lexus LED check running lights. And here in your front bumper, this illuminates to help you see around corners, which is very nice. You do have body colored squared off hexagonal, or maybe this would even be octagonal. No, hexagonal. No, it would be octagonal. Math is hard. But anyway, you do get squared off wheel arches. Here they are body colored. If you go for the Overtrail, the more off-road oriented trim, they will be kind of a scratchy black plastic, again, to kind of protect it from dirt and rocks and chips and things like that. But you do have bigger wheels here and more street-oriented tires. You do have an integrated running board. I think you get running boards on just about every trim and every application. On the Overtrail, on the press materials, you've also been seeing the kind of like sandy earth color, but look at this blue. Is that not insane? It looks really dark unless you're like directly in midday sun. You see over here, it looks really dark, but then here it's catching the light. It looks really crazy blue. I really like that. But anyway, what I was saying is you do get a two-tone, or you can get a two-tone roof. This still has the blue up here, but you can see this is about where it would start to differentiate itself and make it black if you were gonna go for the two-tone. You do have a more smaller kind of Wrangler or FJ style wing mirror. This is a little bit annoying. I do wish it was a little bit wider. It does look cool, but it's not exactly as usable as it might be. You do have a little hump here going into your C-pillar. You have touch sensitive lock, unlock for your front and rear doors, but again, just appreciate this paint. And I see a lot of people making allusions to the Land Rover Defender and this thing having a lot in common, and I very much do see that. It's very squared off, it's very off-road classic SUV shape, but when we get into the interior, there's another car that I think it's even more closely related to. We come around the back, we have the backwards baseball cap, spoiler, I guess you could say, and then we have the full width Lexus LED tail bar, GX550 Lexus script spelled out, and a rear bumper with integrated tow hitch. Again, it's got a little cap over it, which looks silly, but it is standard, so every GX is gonna get that. But since we just talked about it, let's talk more specifically about towing. Now, this is one of the big benefits of having that extra power and that stronger frame. Towing is now up just over 9,000 pounds, which is pretty amazing. And like I said, this tow hitch is going to be standard. Just pop that off, throw something in there, and then you can tow whatever, as long as it's 9,000 pounds or below. But again, lots of muscle, pretty impressive. Now we're gonna look at the trunk, but before we do, I've taken the privacy partition out because I have to demonstrate something. Now, one, you still can open the rear glass independently of the trunk. I do like to see that. Now, leave in the comments if you prefer this style or the 4Runner style, where it literally goes down into this area like a window. But one of the things that the old GX had was the swing out tailgate. This does not have that. You get kick gesture, so it is power opening with the loudest chime ever, but it hinges up in a more typical fashion. So if it's raining, you can kind of hang out under here, you can get blasted by the speaker and all that stuff. You do have close and lock, and like you saw, kick gesture, but look at this trunk. Now, all GXs standard are gonna come, well, I shouldn't say that. Most GXs are gonna come as 3-row vehicles. The Overtrail is going to come with just 2 rows. And I have to say, the 2-row is the way to go, because look at how little trunk space you have with this 3rd row up. Like, I can't even store my camera backpack back here laying on its face because it's just that small. Like, it's just kind of silly. Like, you have such little space back here. So that's why I have the privacy partition out. You do have a household style outlet back here, and this 3rd row does power fold. So I'll close them. They usually take about 2 clicks. This is a pre-production car. I don't know what that is. I haven't seen what that sound is, but you heard it there. So they go all the way down. Now, if you go for the Overtrail, you'll lose the 3rd row, which I think is fine, but you'll still have the cup holders back here for your trunk. So in case you want to hang out or live in the back of your trunk, then you can do that. But this is kind of interesting, this little carpeted bit. This is exactly where the trunk is going to be if you have the 3rd row up. And as a little bonus, that's all you're going to get for underfloor storage. A little bit for a jack or a winch, and then maybe some additional, very little bit of storage. But here we are. And again, that's where the privacy cover is going to go. Well, let's get these back up. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk numbers here. Now, you can see the load floor is super high. So you are going to have to like really hoist stuff if it's heavy to get it up into this load floor. Now, with those 3rd row seats up, you're looking at just 10.3 cubic feet of storage. Now, without that, if you have it down like this, you're looking at about 40.2 cubic feet of storage with the 3rd row down. If you go with no 3rd row on the Overtrail, that'll up it about 5 cubic feet to 45.6. And if you were to drop the middle rows of seats, you're looking at about 76.9 cubic feet. Again, without the 3rd row on the Overtrail, that would go up to 90.5 cubic feet of space, and that's just huge. But let's get these 3rd row seats back up so I can show you the 3rd row space. Okay, to get into the 3rd row, you pull this, and it's gonna kind of double hinge its way out of the way. Pretty good. Now, it is kind of tight to get through here, but this is kind of what we expect from body on frame 3-row vehicles. Now, keep in mind, the Toyota version, closest competitor, maybe kind of with a 3rd row body on frame, is gonna be the Sequoia. And we just did a review on that. And that was like catastrophically small 3rd row. So I'm 6'1". I can sit back, like I can actually sit back here, at least knee room wise. I have about an inch or 2 of knee room in front of me. I also can power recline these 3rd row seats back here. And I do have a USB-C. It's the it's the knee room. Hopefully you can see this. Like the floor, since it is body on frame, solid rear axle, my knees are really high, so I almost feel like I'm being kind of squished in the fetal position here. It's okay. Look at headroom. You know, it is pretty tight for headroom, but you are gonna get air vents back here, something you're not getting from every 3-row. So like knee room is okay, but otherwise it is kind of tight. But I am surprised by how much space you have back here overall. You could definitely put kids back here or people with less torso. I see what it's doing. So when we hear that thunk, Jesus Christ. So when we heard the thunk as we were putting the seats down, that's the seat bottoms kind of going back underneath the seats, and then they're gonna fold on top of it. Okay, I get it now. So this is kind of what it's gonna look like with all the seats down. So let me just try to get in here actually, because presumably you might take this thing overlanding. Now, it is an incline with my head being higher than my feet, which I guess is what you want rather than your feet above your head. I'm 6'1". I would have to bend my legs a little bit, but I could sleep back here. But then checking out the second row. Now you can see a little bit of detailing in here. Now this is the premium plus grade, so the luxury grade is going to give you a couple more things. Maybe a little bit nicer leather. You will also get a window shade for your second row in the luxury tier. But take a look at the seats. Pretty simple, kind of basic, but the leather is really nice. So we'll get in here, we'll step in. Again, I'm 6'1", and I've got some knee room, not a huge amount. Again, I just kind of think that if it were me and my money, I would go for the Overtrail. One, because the off-road stuff would look cool. I do have plenty of headroom, but it would also give me that more trunk space that we talked about. I'm not going to use the third row because it's pretty tight, and I would also get more second row. So I think if it were me, I would get a 2-row GX, but the Toyota Land Cruiser, the cousin of this, is going to be 2-row exclusively. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes out. We'll look here. You're going to get climate zones back here and 3-level heated seats in the rear here as well. You've got chargers, you've got mat pockets, and like I said, the leather is pretty nice. You've also got cup holders and stuff that fold down from here. But yeah, generally just a little tiny bit tight for the knees. I can sit back here at 6'1", but if I'm any taller, it might start to get a little bit too tight. The footroom is also kind of tight. I can't back my heels up anymore because this is where the seats are. So yeah. Size 12, if you got 13 or more, could start to have a little bit of an issue. Then checking out the front seats, they're pretty nice. And again, this is the premium trim. In the luxury trim, you're gonna get 9 rectangles. That's 9, Doug, by the way, not 6. Math is hard, I know, but 9. No, I'm just kidding. I get stuff wrong in my videos every once in a while too. But anyway, 3-level heated seat, 3-level cooled seat. You also do have a climate concierge function, so it'll automatically set your heated and cooled seat along with your 2-level heated steering wheel, which is quite nice. You've also got somewhere, oh, here it is, 3-level memory seats, so that's pretty nice. But generally speaking, it is very comfortable. You can also get a massage seat option. So stuff that I would kind of expect to see from Lexus, but always appreciated and is very nice. And then we'll just talk about the interior design and the build. And this is exactly what Lexus does so well versus really anyone else, at least anyone under like a Bentley or a Rolls-Royce moniker. Everything feels really, like this is the Premium Plus, so just about the bargain tier, not the luxury, not the off-road Overtrail, but still all of the leathers feel really good. Everything feels really solid and slapped together. And this is a pre-production car too, so it has some faults kind of built in, and this still feels really high quality. Some of the most special thing, like I said, is the exterior design. The interior here does feel pretty Lexus, pretty typical stuff that we've seen. Like one of the things that I like to see is some of the physical climate controls and dials that you have here, and everything on this black panel part of the screen is always going to be there, no matter what screen you're on. So you can constantly get to your heated seat, cooled seat, heated steering wheel, some of your climate menus, and other shortcuts like that. There are some things that change though from some of the more typical Lexus stuff that we've seen recently, and one is the fact that you have actual buttons on the steering wheel that don't correspond to a head-up display like we just had in the TX and the NX and I think the RX as well. So they're not that touch sensitive, it doesn't rely on the head-up display, and I do like that they kind of stand alone and act as their normal physical buttons here. The speaker system on this Premium is okay. If you want to go up, you'll get the Mark Levinson, which is very good. USB-C chargers here, and then the center port, see if I can reach up here. is like weirdly celebrated for this 12 volts here, which is just kind of fun. But you do have a dash cubby here, which is kind of the new classic of storage. I like to see that. Very just thoughtful to plop your wallet or your, your phone or something in there. So I do think that that is nice. You also do get loads of headroom in here. And to be honest, we talk a lot, and we've heard a lot of people talk about how similar this thing is to a Defender, but in here, especially sitting right there, it feels more G-Wagon than anything else. Like, it has very specific G-Wagon feeling. It's kind of tight width-wise, but loads of height and headroom. This one doesn't have it because it's the premium, but you can get a cooled storage box in there. It's not going to be a fridge, but it will give you a little bit of a cooled space to keep drinks a little bit cooler than they otherwise might be. And then as we start to talk about some of the tech stuff and just some of the other stuff going on here, this is where it does start to feel just kind of typical Lexus. Like I said, the exterior design is kind of the most special thing. The rest of it, once you're in here, does just feel kind of typical Lexus, which is a good or a bad thing, depending on who you are. On the good side, it's fantastically well built. All the leathers are really nice. The bad thing is it's just not as different as you might want it to be. But you do get a head-up display with a bunch of information. I do like that. You get the fully digital instrument cluster. It's not actually flashing in real life. It's just how the camera's picking it up. But it's got a little bit more customizability than it usually has. And I do think that it works pretty well. You get different drive mode animations. So you go to your mode select button here. And then this is, a little bit more pizzazz and flair than you get from like the Toyotas or something like that. So just a little bit of pomp and circumstance with your drive modes. And then you go over here, you do have your 14-inch center screen. This is kind of the same system that we've seen from Toyota the last 2 or 3 years, depending on whenever the Tundra came out. But basically, it's all the same stuff. Wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, dual Bluetooth connection, over-the-air updates. It is pretty typical here. You've got your button here for your egg mode, which you can also change the color of, and you can make it the over trail, which is the cool one. But that being said, you have not the LC style shifter that you get in pretty much everything else, but you get a big boy shifter, a more manly shifter. But you do still have 360 cameras, a little bit of warping in the reverse camera. You don't, on this trim, have a frontward facing camera, at least not that you can use, but you will on the Overtrail. And on the Overtrail, you'll get multi-terrain monitor, so you can see your side tolerances and a bunch of other camera views that are helpful for off-roading. And we're gonna touch on this little area down here. We already talked about the flare that you get for the 12 volt, but you can cover up the cup holders, which I don't know why you would, but I guess it looks kind of cool covered up. You do also have a wireless charger, which works pretty well. You've got this tab here, which, like we said, you have 4 high and 4 low, so you have full-time 4-wheel drive, which is great. I do like to see that on something like this that's not a designated off-roader. And then you do have a center differential lock, so if you want to send the same power forward and backward, you can still lock it. But you just push this little tab in. It doesn't feel as satisfying to do as something else, but this is the premium. This is not the Overtrail, so I don't imagine you're probably needing to mess with this too much. But generally speaking, it's just kind of nice in here. And then in terms of your safety stuff, you get Toyota Safety Sense 3.0, which we've tested in a number of Toyota Lexuses and works very well. You've got your eyeball watcher here, but it's a very good system. It is better on the unibody cars, but on the F chassis cars here, at least with this GX, it still works pretty well, just not quite to that extra tenth that you get from the unibody stuff like a RX or a TX. And last thing we'll talk about, of course, is price. Now, a GX starts, in general, at $64,250, and this is the premium, I believe Premium Plus. So this, as tested, is like $66,000, like barely over $66,000, and you still get cooled seat, you still get heated seat, heated steering wheel, you get a lot of the driver assist stuff. So you are still getting a lot of stuff here without needing to go up into the $80,000 for the Overtrail and some of the more crazy equipped stuff. So I think you're getting a lot of car here for the money, but let's grab the key and go for a drive and see if that remains to be true. Lexus GX, twin turbo V6. Yes. I mean, it's not slow. 350 horsepower, but approaching 500 pound-feet of torque. I'm actually gonna take it out. Well, listen to this. I hope you can hear it, because wind noise is a thing. You sit up super, super high. Like, I feel very high up behind the wheel of this thing, but this is also a good place to test it. Railroad tracks. It does still feel body on frame. It really does. So anyway, I'm talking about a lot of things at once here. It feels relatively quick. It has plenty of torque, but 350 horsepower does not make it seem like it's overreaching for power. You still have plenty more power than you did from the V8. You've got loads of towing capacity and you've got loads of torque, but it doesn't seem like the turbos are going to be super stressed. And I think that has a lot to do with the inbuilt reliability tuning that they're trying to do here. I know a lot of people that come from, you know, the historic Lexus Toyota umbrella are so used to that dependability, that longevity, that going to twin turbos, going to hybrids is a scary thing for them. So maybe by cutting down on not making it 400 horsepower, maybe that helps put some people's minds at ease, keeps the turbos not spooling too high, and keeps things reliable. But what's next? What should we talk about next? Seating position. I am sitting up so high. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just the G-Wagon effect, because like sitting in here, it really does feel like a G-Wagon effect. It feels more G-Wagon than Defender because it does feel a little bit narrow, definitely still, you know, wider than a conventional G-Wagon, but kind of narrow, but then really tall. And I sit up really high. And what that results in, especially over speeds of like 40 miles an hour, is wind noise, because the glass here isn't, again, as vertical as like a Wrangler or a G-Wagon, but still pretty vertical. So you get a lot of wind noise here. But the other side of that is visibility is freaking excellent. I can see everything. I can't see everything out of these side view mirrors, but they're okay. They're okay. The other thing too is I believe the Overtrail and I know the Luxury get the AVS, or the adaptive suspension. I don't think the Premium here has it. Actually, I know it doesn't have it. But watch what happens. I'm gonna jiggle the steering wheel after we get past this Subaru. Watch this. Look at how much this thing is leaning. But it's weird because like optically, it looks like it's leaning more than I feel it. And I hope that I'm explaining this like in a way that makes sense. But like, it looks like it's so dramatic and it's wallowy. But like, what I'm sitting here and what I'm feeling isn't that wallowy, it isn't that crazy. The ride here, while yes, over medium to bigger road imperfections, does still feel body on frame, it still feels very supple. There's good suspension travel here, and it does feel really refined. And aside from the wind noise coming through, it's a really nice cabin experience. Okay, we're gonna come into this left-hander. Little bit of wallow, but not too bad. And then you've got torque to pull you through the corner. Steering is okay. I do wish the steering wheel came out another inch or two, but it's fine. It's fine. There's not a lot of feedback, but it does have a decent weight. It's not too heavy like a BMW steering rack. It's not too light like some other things like in Toyota's umbrella, but it does feel pretty decent. It weights up a little bit, but yeah, I mean, this thing isn't something that you're gonna drive hard or fast. One of the things that I am looking forward to though, and I have to believe it's coming, I haven't heard anything, you know, maybe I should talk to Kirk or somebody, but it has to be coming out, right? With the hybrid, with the iForce Max, or whatever the Lexus equivalent would be called. Oh, we've got lean. That's kind of fun though. The lean is like really dramatic. It's just kind of like old SUV. I like that. This kind of plays on the nostalgia. But anyway, we're talking about the iForce Max. So what we have here is like 100 more foot-pounds of torque, 50 more horsepower, a load of towing, but only about 2 mpg better than the V8. And then, you know, there's the questionable trade-off of like, oh, you know, durability and dependability versus fuel economy, you know, whatever. I think with the hybrid system, adding that, you know, approaching 600 pound-feet of torque or whatever it is in the Tundra TRD Pro, and then, you know, 400 horsepower or whatever it is, and then introducing another, let's say 2 mpg that I could save, I'd be into that. I would be into that. And especially in like an Overtrail, you know, I'm not saying that we would get like a G63 fighter, but, you know, something that might compete a little bit closer to like a G-Wagon experience with a little bit more power, a little bit more rah-rah. Now, one of the things that I do like about this though, that we don't have that the Toyotas do that annoys me, is in the Toyotas, it really beats you with synthesized V8 noise in the cabin. This doesn't do that. This is a lot more sedate. It sounds more like a V6. It's not beating you over the head with, it doesn't have a V8 anymore, so here's some sound. It's not doing that anymore. This is a little bit more self-aware. Power is really smooth, it's plentiful, it's torquey, and it works. So I guess at the end of the day, it's a good and a bad thing, where I really like the styling of it. The behind the wheel experience is kind of G-Wagon, and that feels special to me. But the rest of it, like the technology and, you know, some of the other stuff that goes into it, just kind of feels typical Lexus, which again is kind of a good or bad thing depending on who you are and what you're looking for. It feels nicer and higher quality than a Defender. And again, I am getting more G-Wagon than Defender here. And I just kind of like it.